All right, let's dive into something truly creepy this time.
Yeah.
Have you heard of the Taiwanese horror film Incantation?
I have.
Well, get this. It's actually based on a real-life story.
Oh,
And
wow.
It's a wild one.
Oh.
We're talking about a family in Taiwan, the Wus, who claim to be possessed by demons.
Really?
And they got caught up in all these, like, bizarre rituals and unexplainable events.
Okay.
So for this deep dive, we're going to be looking at excerpts from the Rotten Mango podcast, online forums, comments from people who've seen the movie,
Interesting.
all sorts of stuff to kind of get a complete picture of this whole thing.
Sounds good.
Because it really makes you wonder, like, how could a seemingly ordinary family,
Right.
parents, 3 daughters, a son,
Yeah.
how could they go so far down this, like, path of just, like, darkness?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So let's start with the family themselves, the Wus.
Okay.
They were living a pretty normal life in their apartment in Taiwan, just going about their day.
Yeah.
Until February 2005.
Okay.
That's when things start to get weird.
What happened?
So, the youngest daughter, they call her Sister C in a lot of the reports.
Okay.
She starts having these really vivid nightmares about the third prince deity.
The third prince.
Yeah, he's a big deal in Taiwanese folklore, seen as a guardian, especially for kids.
Oh, interesting.
So when he starts showing up in her dreams,
Yeah.
and she's also having migraines and just feeling super anxious, it really freaks the family out.
I can imagine.
Now, the family has these deep-seated beliefs in spiritual possession.
Right.
They believe that the third prince appearing like this means someone in the family is in danger, maybe even already possessed. And of course, they're terrified.
Makes sense.
And then to make matters worse, the oldest daughter, Sister A, she starts having disturbing nightmares too.
Really?
Like, we're not talking just bad dreams here.
Okay.
She's dreaming about being assaulted, killing a man, really graphic stuff.
Wow, that's intense.
Yeah, it really messed her up. So at this point, the family's like, okay, something's definitely wrong here.
Right.
So they start consulting spiritual mediums, trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And they become convinced that they somehow upset the balance, invited something negative in.
How do they think that happened?
Well, apparently, they had moved a statue of the third prince in their home.
Oh, really?
And they believed that that's what did it.
Huh.
So trying to fix things, they send the 3 daughters to meditate at this place called Five Finger Mountain.
Five Finger Mountain. I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's known for its spiritual significance in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the parents and the son stay behind at the apartment.
Okay.
And they start doing all these intense cleansing rituals.
Like what?
I'm talking like covering the whole floor with salt and rice, burning Joe sticks constantly.
Wow.
Even hanging black cloths outside the windows.
Black cloths. That's creepy.
Yeah, the neighbors were definitely starting to notice that something was up.
Yeah, but...
To understand all this, we have to talk about Funu.
Okay, Funu, what's that?
It's this concept in Taiwanese culture about the energy of a place, whether it's harmonious or not.
So like good vibes, bad vibes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
And the Wus were convinced that their apartment had bad Funu.
Interesting.
And it makes sense when you think about it. Their apartment was at a T-junction,
Okay.
which is considered inauspicious in some interpretations of Feng Shui.
Right.
And they thought it didn't get enough sunlight.
So it felt kind of gloomy, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they're doing all these rituals. The neighbors are seeing all this weird stuff.
Yeah.
And then, after a month, the daughters come back from Five Finger Mountain.
Okay.
And that's when things go from strange
Yeah.
to seriously terrifying.
Oh.
Every single member of the family starts claiming to be possessed by a different deity.
What?
Yeah, and we're talking major figures from Taiwanese mythology.
Like who?
The Jade Emperor, Queen Mother of the West, the Goddess of Mercy, the Seventh Fairy, the Third Prince, again, even the Drunken Monk.
It's like the whole pantheon.
Right, and their logic was that one of them must be possessed by a demon.
Okay.
So they started performing these like violent exorcisms on each other.
Exorcisms on each other.
Yeah, trying to like root out the evil they believed was lurking within their family.
Wow, so this is where things get really dark.
Yeah, it gets pretty intense. We'll talk about that next time.
Yeah, okay.
But just imagine the scene, this once ordinary family, Now they're beating each other with broomsticks,
Oh my god.
burning each other with joss sticks. They're even smearing themselves and the whole apartment with excrement.
Excrement. Like, what?
Yeah, they believe that the filth would repel the spirits.
Oh man, that's disturbing.
It is. It's really disturbing, and we're just scratching the surface here.
I can't wait to hear more.
We'll get into the really disturbing details and try to make sense of all this next time.
Looking forward to it. So we left off with the Wu family, claiming to be possessed by all these different deities.
Yeah, it was a whole, divine showdown happening in their apartment.
Right, and then performing those pretty intense exorcisms on each other.
Yeah, the whole thing just gets so dark
It does.
and tragic, especially when you consider what happened to Sister A, the oldest daughter.
Right, her death is really the heartbreaking climax of this whole story.
It is, and it really makes you question, what drove them to that point?
Yeah, was it really all just, demonic possession?
Right, or is there something else going on here?
So, to try and understand it, let's look at what the experts have to say.
Okay, so the psychiatrist who evaluated the family, he concluded that none of them individually showed signs of a major mental illness, like schizophrenia.
Interesting.
These seemed relatively normal on their own.
But as a family unit, something was clearly off.
Definitely.
And the psychiatrist suggested that it was likely a case of shared delusion, also known as folie à deux.
Folie à deux, that sounds intense.
It's basically when a dominant person's delusional beliefs are adopted by others in close contact with them.
So one person's delusion kind of spreads to the whole group.
Yeah, and in this case, the family's extreme superstition, the intense stress they were under,
Right.
and the severe sleep deprivation from all those late night rituals, it created this perfect breeding ground for this kind of collective psychosis.
So they were all just feeding off each other's fear and anxiety.
Exactly, and remember, they were already convinced their apartment had bad funyu, so they were primed to see negative energy everywhere.
It's like their beliefs were a self-fulfilling prophecy.
In a way, yeah.
And then there's the question of whether someone else might have been influencing them.
Oh, right, the master.
Yeah, some people believe that this spiritual advisor or master could have been manipulating them, taking advantage of their vulnerability.
That's a chilling thought.
It is. The source material mentions that this master performed a multi-day exorcism at the apartment, warning them about demons in possession.
So he was actively reinforcing their fears.
Yeah, and whether he was genuinely trying to help or had more sinister motives, it's impossible to know for sure.
That's true, but it definitely adds another layer of complexity to this whole case.
It does. And then on top of all that, you have the more scientific explanations, like the possibility of mold poisoning.
The mold poisoning?
Yeah, some people have suggested that could have been a factor.
How so?
Well, mold can release toxins that affect the brain,
Oh, wow.
and it can cause hallucinations, delusions, even aggression.
Interesting, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and their apartment was older, and Taiwan has a pretty humid climate, so it's not out of the realm of possibility.
That's true, it's definitely worth considering.
And then, of course, you have the most cynical theory of all, that the whole thing was faked.
Faked. Like a hoax.
Yeah, some people think it was all orchestrated, maybe a cover-up for something else, like a murder.
A murder. That's a pretty big leap.
It is, but it's a theory that's been floating around online.
So we have all these possible explanations. Shared delusion, outside influence, environmental factors, even a potential hoax.
It's like this case becomes a Rorschach test, reflecting whatever the viewer already believes.
That's a good way to put it.
Out of all these possibilities, what stands out to you the most?
That's a tough one, but I think the shared delusion theory seems the most plausible.
Yeah, me too. I mean, the family's isolation, their intense beliefs, the sleep deprivation, it all seems like the perfect recipe for a collective break from reality.
Yeah, it really does, and that leads us to the film Incantation, which takes this idea of a shared curse to a whole new level.
Yeah, the movie is terrifying, but it's also really thought-provoking. Yeah.
Definitely. And the fact that it's based on a real story just makes it all the more unsettling.
It's like the filmmakers took the Wu family's tragedy and amplified it, turned it into this visceral horror experience.
And they did it so effectively. The found footage style, the creepy imagery.
It really gets under your skin.
It does. And then there's the way the film presents the curse as something that can be transmitted through viewing, like just by watching the movie and repeating the incantation.
Yeah, that's one of the most disturbing aspects of the film.
It plays on our fascination with the supernatural, our need to explain the unexplainable.
And it totally works. I mean, People have reported feeling genuinely cursed after watching the movie.
Yeah, I've heard about that.
They share their experiences online, which just adds to the whole mystique surrounding the film and the real-life case it's based on.
It's crazy how a movie can have that kind of impact on people.
It is, but I think it also speaks to our own anxieties and vulnerabilities. Like if the Wu family, with their seemingly ordinary beliefs, could spiral into such a nightmare.
Right.
It makes you wonder about our own susceptibility to fear and suggestion.
It's a question that really stays with you after the movie ends.
It does, and it's something we're going to keep exploring in the final part of our deep dive.
Yeah, we'll delve deeper into the psychological mechanisms at play, examine the film's themes in more detail.
And try to connect it all back to the Wu family's tragic experience. Man, that movie Incantation really sticks with you, huh?
It does, yeah. It's one of those films that makes you think.
Yeah, like about the power of belief and how easily we can get caught up in fear.
Right, exactly.
And it's all the more disturbing knowing that it's inspired by a real-life tragedy.
Yeah, the Wu family story is just heartbreaking.
It is, and thinking about them, if we go with that shared delusion theory, it makes me wonder, like, how did their delusion become so dark, so violent?
Well, it seems like their beliefs kind of created this feedback loop of fear and paranoia.
A feedback loop.
Yeah, like every negative event, every little thing that went wrong, they interpreted it as proof of demonic possession.
So they were just like constantly reinforcing their own fears.
Exactly. And with no one to challenge their beliefs, they just spiraled deeper and deeper into this really dark place.
And their actions, the exorcisms, they just made everything worse, didn't they?
Absolutely. I mean, they were so desperate to get rid of the evil they believed was inside them,
Right.
that they ended up inflicting real harm on each other.
It's so sad, and it really highlights how dangerous unchecked fear and unquestioned beliefs can be.
It does, and especially when it's amplified by a group dynamic, like in the Wu family's case.
Their story is a cautionary tale for all of us,
Yeah.
It reminds us to question our assumptions.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to things like faith and superstition.
And to be aware of our own mental well-being.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
To recognize when something isn't right and to reach out for help.
Especially if those experiences are shared by others.
Yeah, early intervention can make a huge difference.
It can, and thinking about all this, about the Wu family and the incantation, it really makes you appreciate the importance of critical thinking.
Definitely.
Of questioning what we believe and why we believe it.
Right, and seeking out multiple perspectives, not just getting stuck in our own echo chambers.
Exactly, and I think that's one of the most important takeaways from this whole deep dive.
It is. It's a reminder that we all have responsibility to be informed, to be critical, and to take care of our own mental health.
Well said. So I guess that about wraps it up for this deep dive into the unsettling world of the Wu family and incantation.
Yeah, it was a fascinating, albeit disturbing journey.
It was, and if you're interested in learning more about any of this, we encourage you to do your own research.
Absolutely. There's a ton of information out there about shared delusion, mass hysteria.
The influence of cultural beliefs on our perceptions of reality.
Yeah, all fascinating topics.
They are, and as always, we want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely.
So share your comments, theories, anything that comes to mind.
We're always listening.
And until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and most importantly, stay safe out there.